Welcome to NucleCast, the official podcast of the ANWA Deterrent Center. Our host is Dr. Adam Lowtham, co-founder and vice president for research at the National Institute for Deterrent Studies. The ANWA Deterrent Center is a 501c3 organization ensuring a broader understanding of the nation's strategic nuclear deterrent and its ongoing modernization. Thank you for listening and welcome to the show. The views of the host and the guests are their own.
Welcome back to another great episode of NucleCast. Of course, I'm your host, Adam Lowther, and today, again, as always, we have a great guest. I'm talking about Brian Zieroth, who is the Senior Program Manager for the Uranium Pit Facility, UPF, as it is more commonly known, at Oak Ridge at Y12. We have talked, we've kind of mentioned the importance of, uranium processing, but we've never really dove into it much. And so, that's the reason we have Brian on, is so we can, go into this really important facility and sort of the need for it. Because, a lot of people, don't we have enough highly enriched uranium? Why would we ever need more? Well, we'll talk about this kind of stuff today. So, Brian, welcome to NucleCast.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you having me on the show.
So let's talk about, UPF and its purpose and why we need it and why we're building it and what exactly it's going to do. So can you maybe give us some sense of, what's going on and why?
Sure. So I'll harken back to your previous podcast with Rich Ty of Consolidated Nuclear Security. And Rich did a great job explaining the three core missions that Y12 has, which is support of our nation's nuclear deterrent, its global security mission, which is a non-proliferation mission, and then providing feedstock to the Naval Reactors Program. A lot of the facilities at Y12 have been around for many, many years. Some date right back to the end of World War II and the Manhattan Project. And the Uranium Processing Facility is going to replace those processing capabilities for enriched uranium at the Y12 site. Y12 handles a number of different materials, but chief amongst them is enriched uranium. And so UPF will replace those existing facilities, which have been functioning for a very long time and functioning very well, but are in need of modernization. And so UPF is going to provide a modern, safe facility to allow us to transfer those enriched uranium capabilities from where they are today.
Okay, so tell us more. Do we need uranium? Don't we have enough? I mean, that's sort of the, why would we do this? Tell us more about, exactly what we want to do and why.
Well, uranium is a key component of our nuclear deterrent. And so we need to have enriched uranium and uranium in other forms. And to actually make use of that and to produce the products that Rich referred to, that Y12 is responsible for making to support our nuclear deterrent, we need to have those processing capabilities. And so it's critical that we keep them operable and available so that we can meet the nation's demand as we continue to upgrade our strategic deterrent.
So what kind of production rate and, sort of where are we with UPF in terms of any kind of required construction? And then just, what's the footprint going to look like? So if you've, for those who have, been to the museum and, in Oak Ridge and have, sort of gone to the Y12 site and, where the old sort of processing facility was, that was a huge building. So what are we going to look like in the future? What's this, sort of what's that footprint and what's the requirement?
So UPF is being constructed by Consolidated Nuclear Security and Bechtel. Bechtel is a 127-year-old fifth-generation family-owned company, and we have about 1,600 craft professionals who are supported by about 900 staff professionals doing functions like engineering, procurement, construction, and startup. And thanks to their hard work today, we're about 80% complete with UPF. There's 5 main facilities at UPF, but construction really started back in 2018, where we started preparing the site to get ready for the construction of those main buildings. And the UPF site had to be cleared. It was originally a parking lot. And so we went through and cleared it out. We actually had to move a road and get ready for construction. And so as we did that, we then moved into the construction of the facilities. In addition to those facilities, we actually created a new, worked with TVA to construct a new substation for the Y12 site, which will support UPF once it's in operation. And then we're in the process of finishing construction on those main facilities now. So we've recently completed two facilities. We have our mechanical and electrical building, which was completed back in 2022. Then we have our process support facilities, which we completed construction on this year, and we expect NNSA to shortly declare that project complete. And that leaves us with the salvage and accountability building and the main process building. Just to give you a sense of scale, the salvage and accountability building is about 140,000 square foot facility. That's basically like the size of a football field if you think of its footprint. And then the main process building is a 242,000 square foot building with all the required security features. At this point, all of our complex equipment is installed in those buildings. So we've gone through and got all that fabricated, which is that's a significant task if you think about the scale of UPF, because we had to work with nuclear grade suppliers from all over the country who had to fabricate a number of different components for us, get them tested, and then ship them to us. But right now, what we're really focused on is making those final electrical connections. And then we've started the process of what we call turning systems over to our startup team. And so we're about 40% through that process where we take an individual system and we turn it over to the startup team, who then goes through the process of testing it and getting ready for commissioning, where we actually practice our procedures and make sure that we're ready for the facility to go into operations.
And when do you think, when will everything be kind of complete and the facility up and running and doing everything it's supposed to do?
So right now we anticipate that construction will complete in 2027 and that the facility will be operational in 2031.
Oh, wow. So 4 years to kind of go in, get everything up and running. I would assume that's, hire the right people, train the right people, you know, get down your processes, all of that kind of stuff is sort of what you're going to have to do between completion of the facility and sort of, you know, operating the facility on a normal basis.
Well, that's a great question. So, first of all, we have to test the facility and make sure that everything we bought works and has been installed correctly. And so, our startup team goes through a very rigorous process. They actually start with individual component tests. So, as every system we turn over to them, they'll go and test an individual component and make sure it works as defined. And from there, they move on to testing things as a system. And that ultimately gets ready for really an integrated system test where we test everything together to make sure that all the different parts and pieces function as expected. As we're doing that, we're ramping up our commissioning team, and there we're actually partnering with local universities to train the future operators of UPF up. We're also going to bring operators from the existing facilities who have the experience to make sure we've got a balanced team. They're developing procedures. We're developing, maintenance procedures, everything we need to operate and maintain UPF through its life. They're getting ready once they take possession of those systems to actually practice the actual processes that will be executed, and then they'll demonstrate those to NNSA to receive that authorization to operate.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So can you tell us more about, what is UPF going to do? Like specifically, what are we going to, for those that, maybe they work in the enterprise, they have sort of some semblance of, what we do and how it works. What's UPF going to be contributing to the broader nuclear mission?
So, what UPF contributes to the broader mission is supporting all those key activities here at Y12. So, when we think about support of our nuclear deterrent, UPF will allow us to fabricate the components, the enriched uranium components that are required to actually supply those parts that Y12 supplies that ultimately get combined to support our nuclear deterrent. And so the different tooling and other components that are required to do that are all built within UPF. When we look at our global security mission, UPF will have all the capabilities that we require to recover material from overseas or other places where it might be at risk, and allow us to put it in a form that is safe for storage and future use. And then when we think about our naval reactors mission, UPF is going to provide that continued capability to provide that critical feedstock. So it take enriched uranium product and put that in the right form that we can supply naval reactors. The key here is that we will have much better reliability, we'll have better safety, our operators will be in a safer environment, and we'll be able to meet the demand that continues to increase based on the world landscape today.
Yeah, so you'll have scalability, I guess, for, whatever that requirement is. And you'll essentially have sort of end to end where, if you get uranium, you can process that, you can enrich it, you can downblend it, you can do sort of all of that sort of full spectrum of things that might be done to uranium.
We'll have the capabilities to do what we need to do to continue to supply those components that Rich talked about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's and right now there's really no place that we do that, correct? Or are we doing it elsewhere? What's the status of our ability to do these kinds of functions?
So Y12 is the nation's enriched uranium center of excellence. And so that capability lies here. And that's why it's so critical that we finish UPF so that we continue to have that capability. And we're not just replacing it, but we're upgrading it with modern technology that is more reliable, can operate at a greater rate, and is safer for the worker and the public.
Yeah. And so where else, and so you say there's nowhere else in the country that we do anything like this. I mean, our adversaries have the capability. I mean, the Russians can, they can build 1,000 pits a year. They've got plenty of capability. They've got plenty of HEU. So this is really kind of a capability that is one that we, the Americans, really need, because it's something that our adversaries maintain, but we've kind of let atrophy.
You're right. It's a capability we need, and it's a capability that NNSA has recognized needs to be reinvigorated. And so they've been making these commitments really across the complex. As you see, one of my prior projects was at Los Alamos, where I worked on the CMRR project, which is upgrading some of the plutonium capabilities. There are other projects going on in other NNSA sites, but it is important that we continue to revitalize and reinvigorate these capabilities to make sure that we have them for the long term.
So as a Bechtel guy who's working on these big construction, these very complex, and when you get with nuclear, it changes everything. Can you maybe tell us sort of for Bechtel and this kind of construction, what are some of the big challenges? And people hear about cost overruns and schedule delays. Maybe talk about for you as a program manager, what are
Mm-hmm.
these big issues that sort of you worry about, that maybe like keep you up at night, or that make your job hard, or that get you drug in to explain, why aren't you doing this, why isn't this on time, why isn't it on budget? What are those things?
Well, these types of projects are really what we do. We've been doing this for 127 years. We've been honored to be parts of projects like the Hoover Dam, Riyadh Metro recently. We recently completed Western Sydney Airport. We did the Crossrail project in England, but we've also done a substantial amount of nuclear work. We've been supporting the nation's nuclear deterrent since shortly after World War II, and we've been involved ever since. I worry about a number of different things as a project manager here at UPF. Foremost, safety. For us, safety is a core value. We don't compromise safety. It's my job to make sure that everyone who comes to work every day goes home the same way every night. We believe in a zero accident philosophy. And so when I go to work every day, I'm thinking about how do I make sure everyone goes home safe. That is a common factor amongst all our projects, and whether they're large or small. With regards to nuclear quality, there is a little bit of uniqueness there relative to some of our other work because there's a very high expectation set all the way through from when we conceptualize a design to when we put the detail behind it to when we go out and we start procuring materials or equipment, and even all the way up to the point where we test it and even back when we install it. We have to make sure that throughout that life cycle we're getting all the paper to demonstrate that we know what we installed, where it came from, and that it'll meet its intended use. And that's critical because nuclear is different. Nuclear, if something goes wrong, there can be a significant impact. And so we have to make sure every single component, whether it's a piece of complex equipment or whether it's sheetrock to go on the walls, that we know where it came from, that we know what its intended use is, that we know the materials of construction, and that when we install it correctly. So quality is a really big deal. Performance is critically important on these jobs. We want to be a trusted partner for NNSA and to continue to deliver on these key projects for the nation. And so we have to perform. Mega projects have a number of challenges, and the NNSA mega projects are not unique in that regard. But a significant amongst them is that in a lot of cases, these are only of a kind projects. I don't even think it's fair to call them first of a kind. It's probably the only time in my lifetime we'll build a UPF. And a lot of the equipment that goes inside UPF will probably never be made in its actual form again. These are things that we designed for a specific purpose. And so with that comes some technical risk. It comes some engineering risk that we have to work through. But we've been successfully doing that and are on track for construction in 2027 and that going operational in 2031.
This episode of NucleCast is brought to you by the ANWA Deterrent Center, whose mission is to educate Americans about the nuclear enterprise and strategic deterrence. So it's if I were to draw analogies, and then analogies are all wrong but sometimes useful. And so it's kind of like, like Rolls-Royce, they're handmade. They're not made by robots. They're all handmade. Everything's hand turned. Everything's done by hand. But what you're doing is not even like what Rolls-Royce. It's like if you were to design one Rolls-Royce model and then only make one of them. And then, it would be that one model designed for that one car that was then built and then, put on the road in and of itself. That's sort of what you're doing.
I think that's a great analogy. You're making one car, you're making one model for one production run of one car, and that you have to know that when you turn that one car on, before you turn it on, that it's going to work and drive in a straight line exactly the way you've designed it to. That's the kind of rigor we go through on a nuclear project like this. And we've got that experience from other projects with NNSA and with nuclear projects we've done like Plant Vogtle. But when you're dealing with nuclear, that's the type of rigor that you have to bring to make sure that you can provide that confidence to your customer.
And it kind of denies you that the great thing about manufacturing and efficiency is that you learn how to make something and then you get good at making it faster and cheaper over time, and you never get that benefit because you're only ever going to make one of something. And so you never get to take those lessons and that efficiency and then apply it elsewhere, which is kind of a hard thing for when you're making these kind of bespoke construction projects.
I think it is a hard thing, but I think where we brings value to that equation is the fact that we've got such a diverse project portfolio. We're able to draw on all the different talents of our company and our people to attack those problems. And so you're right, every one of these projects is a one-off, but when you've done 30% of the world's LNG capacity, we've got people who are really good at running pipe and installing that and telling us how to weld it and get that all right. So we're able to leverage that experience. We're able to leverage experience from our team that built Plant Vogtle, who knows similar requirements. We're able to leverage our team who's worked at Los Alamos and Savannah River and some of the other NNSA sites, because whilst they're all unique and one-offs, there's those common lessons learned, especially when we think about the supply chain. We've got really strong relationships with glove box vendors and other custom equipment vendors who we've worked with over the years, and we've learned how do you make best use of their talent so that you can meet those challenges. Because while the challenges are unique to every project, those lessons learned are transferable.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, after COVID, sort of the labor market and everything kind of changed, and finding labor was difficult. Have you seen in sort of this, the years since COVID, that prices have come down, labor's easier to find, that some of those challenges that COVID presented have now dissipated, or are you seeing that those things are still sort of problematic?
We haven't really seen prices come down, but to your question about labor, we've been lucky in that we've been able to leverage our deep understanding of the North American labor market to make sure that we can bring the talent that we need to get UPF completed. And so there's always competing forces, especially for skilled craft labor. We really value our partnership with the local Knox building trades, who in their 16 unions that are providing us labor here at UPF. We have put in incentives over time to attract the additional labor that we've needed, but we've been very lucky in that we've been able to meet the need to get UPF done.
Yeah. So as you look at sort of the challenges that you still are facing or that you have faced, and if you were to like rank them, like biggest to sort of least challenging, and then if you were to rank sort of your successes, how would you rank your challenges, and then how would you rank your successes?
Um, you mean specifically with regards to UPF?
Correct. Yeah. Like, was it labor that was your biggest challenge? Was it getting the right material? What were those challenges that you've had to deal with, and what were just sort of what was really the problematic ones? And then as you had successes getting all this done, would you say, hey, our biggest success was we were able to do this?
Okay. Yeah, I think when we think about challenges, and we talked a little bit about it already, the nuclear supply chain was a particular challenge for us in terms of just the sheer amount of material that we had to procure nuclear grade. And there is a great community of suppliers out there that knows how to produce nuclear grade equipment. But it's not what it was back from our heyday in this country of when we were building a whole fleet of nuclear reactors. And so we've done a lot of work to partner with vendors and help them understand what the requirements are, how to provide nuclear grade equipment, nuclear grade bulk material. And that did present itself as a challenge early on, and then was exacerbated by COVID, where things just naturally got harder to get, took longer. We all got used to pre-COVID lead times where I could order something off the shelf and it would be over, arrive on site maybe overnight. And we don't live in that same world anymore. And so we've had to work with that, partnering with suppliers to really make sure that, as we have a need for material or need to replace something, that we can do that expeditiously. I think the labor challenge is one that regularly presents itself, but we've been able to manage through that, especially in the early days of the project, where this was a very competitive labor environment with a number of other mega projects going on. Remember, we started construction when Plant Vogtle was still under construction, units 3 and 4, but we were able to navigate that. And get the critical skilled labor that we needed to maintain the project. Staff professionals, that is also a challenge. We're really lucky in that Oak Ridge, Tennessee is a great place to live and work, and so it's easy to draw those skilled professionals. But it's a competitive environment, and we have to continue to live our values and demonstrate that we're a great place to work to be able to attract and retain that talent. In terms of successes, I think the work that our construction team and are supported by our engineers and our procurement professionals has done has just been amazing in what we've been able to do the past couple of years in driving UPF to 80% completion. We've been able to get all of our complex equipment installed. We're almost substantially through the early turnovers to our startup team. Our startup team has had a lot of success in early testing. That's progressing really well and allowing us to create opportunities to bring our commissioning team in early so that they can continue to pull ahead. I think it will ultimately be a success, will be our partnership with local organizations and universities to really train the next generation of operators and get them ready for operate UPF in the future.
So why, so there are other facilities at, other, NNSA um, places. I don't,
Hmm. Sites.
lab sites, yeah, lab sites that are not on time, and sort of they're having budget issues and they're way behind. So, what would you say has been something that's allowed you to stay, closer to your schedule, where others may not have been able to meet their schedules? Are there? Is it you know is it things like, well, in a different location, labor is harder to come by, materials harder to come by? Maybe you're just a fantastic program manager and nobody else is as good. That could be possibly true as well. But is there anything that sort of allowed y'all to sort of be successful where, other facilities or other construction projects maybe have had more challenges?
Yeah, we've certainly had our challenges, and driven in the past. We talked about COVID and
Sure.
had to go through and update our plans. We've been lucky about over the past 2 years of being able to track to our plan, and we've been on plan and slightly under the cost estimate that we expected to be at. But every project's unique, and every project experiences a different labor environment. Has we talked about those one of a kind, complex equipment or materials. They all vary, but the other thing to keep in mind when we think about all those projects that are going on, we're all probably buying from the same vendors, and so there's a throughput limit there that as a nation we have to continue to support and develop, as especially as we see the new nuclear that's all on the horizon, and NNSA's continuing to increase their focus on the revitalization of the facilities that support the deterrent.
Yeah. Now it's that time in the show where we bring out Bob the genie, and as I rub my magic lamp, Bob grants 3 wishes to all guests, but they have to make wishes related to our topics of discussion. So, with that, Brian, what is your first wish?
Well, I tell you, as a Bechtel project manager, we like to say, wish or hope is not a strategy, but I'll definitely take help from Bob. First, I would say is we've done a lot of work to make sure that safety flows through everything we do, and I would want to make sure that again, everyone on our team goes home safe through the end of this project and on all our other projects. That is the first thing I wake up thinking about every morning, and my last thought before I go to bed is what am I doing to make sure our team is safe? And that's what I continually challenge our leadership about is what are we doing to make sure that everyone on our team goes home safe every day. I think second, and really focused on UPF, is that all the equipment works as designed and as intended, and as we go through that critical startup and commissioning phase, that we don't have any significant issues. The team's worked really, really hard to make sure that we get it right the first time, that we've built in quality from the beginning of the process. But if a head nod from Bob would help, we'd certainly take it to make sure we don't see any surprises during this phase of the job. And then lastly, we at Bechtel want to continue to be a trusted partner with NNSA on their projects. As I said, we've been working with the nation in this area since the end of World War II, and we really want to continue to be part of that, and we're committed to delivering. And so if Bob can help me continue to deliver on UPF and our other projects, I'd really appreciate it.
All right. So, we're going to, I think Bob has a degree in construction management. So, we'll see if we can get him working on those three.
Fantastic.
So, for as we kind of end the show, because that's where we are, what's that sort of that mic drop that you want to walk off the stage and you want people to remember, about UPF 6 months or a year from now?
I want everyone to know that UPF is a critical project to support our nation's strategic security. Without UPF, Y-12 will not in the future have the capabilities it needs to continue making the critical components that go into our nation's nuclear deterrent. And so UPF is a critical part of that infrastructure. When we talk to our team, we tell them every day, you are part of our nation's defense because you are building that facility that ensures that our strategic deterrent continues to function into the future, and that those dollars that are being committed we're getting value for those dollars, they're being spent well, and that this is a critical project for our nation.
All right. Brian Zieroth, thanks for joining us on NucleCast.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it.
And thanks to you, the listeners, and we'll see you on the next show. Great to talk to Brian about UPF. Glad to see things are, on time and under budget. That's not something we often get to say, so that was good. And it's always interesting to talk about these kinds of projects because they're bespoke projects. And I don't know if you've ever bought suits, but bespoke suits tend to cost a lot more than sort of suits off the shelf at Dillard's. So it was good to talk in more detail about UPF. So I'm glad Brian was on.
This has been a production of the ANWA Deterrent Center, a 501c3 that seeks to educate key decision makers, stakeholders, and the public to ensure a broader understanding of the nation's strategic nuclear deterrent. Our executive producer is Kimberly Charrington, and this episode has been engineered and mixed by David Grunthal. Help us grow our followers by sharing it and follow the show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter at NucleCast.